Welcome everyone to the business meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is September 3rd, 2024. And we're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. We are all here today, and the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight, September 3rd. So if I can have a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight with one change, and that is to remove item 13, reconvene the meeting, or I'm sorry, not 13, 14, board roundtable continued if needed. So we'll remove that from the agenda.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Draper Elementary Principal Ronnie Mulqueen here, and then she will also give us school highlights.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for this opportunity to come and share a little bit about Draper Elementary. I want to start off by giving you our mission statement. It is to prepare all students to be enthusiastic, responsible, lifelong learners who achieve to the best of their ability and are prepared for the challenges of a global society. That's a lofty mission, and it's something that we take seriously. What I'm going to talk about is how we address this, and all of the celebrations that we get to encounter at Draper. And I'm proud to say that in 2024, Draper was ranked number 22 in the elementary of all elementary schools in Utah. We were ranked number 7 in Canyon School District, and we're the number 1 magnet school in the state. So for Draper, we're proud of that. We think that that's an amazing accomplishment, and we work hard. As many of you know, we're a Chinese dual immersion school, and our language teachers come from a variety of backgrounds. Some of our teachers are residents of Utah, and they're citizens of the United States, and they've either learned their language as children or they learned it as a young adult as they traveled here. Some of our teachers are guest teachers. We have teachers from Taiwan and also from China. And all of our international teachers are experienced in their fields back in their home country, and they bring that experience to Draper Elementary. We invite them, we welcome them, and we celebrate our dual immersion program. Our program is an integrated curriculum within a school environment that values all students, all cultures, and we seek creative pursuits that add richness and beauty to the ongoing learning achievement that takes place at Draper. Our cultural appreciation is an important aspect of Draper Elementary. We value the fine arts, and in the same way, we value the cultures and languages of other countries. And in our art, you may know, as part of our admiration for fine arts, Draper has a unique historical art exhibit and collection in our hallways. It's full of displays for our children to enjoy, our guests to enjoy, and our community to enjoy. One of the most unique displays is an original oil painting, Norman Rockwell. It's Ichabod. Ichabod Crane is displayed in our library. With much pride, we talk about it with our students, with our librarians, and we hold that value of art true to ourselves. Last spring, our school community council hosted our first STEAM night, and we call it a STEAM night with science, technology, engineering, math, and also we added the arts because it is a value for Draper Elementary. In collaboration with our BTS art teacher, every student participated in creating a piece of art display for an art show that was also exhibited in our hallways along with our amazing collection. We invited parents to get their hands dirty and participate with clay and work alongside their students. So as you can see, we add value to the arts and to culture at Draper Elementary to make something very unique and special to all of us. Draper Elementary is rich in learning. We're passionate about creating opportunities for students to explore the world around them, and through various means of connecting knowledge and information with arts and culture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I know I enjoyed hearing about that, and the STEAM night sounded amazing, and I'm sure the students loved that and the parents as well. So the next item on the agenda is the Canyon Strong Student Recognitions, and that will be presented by Jeff Haney, Director, and Kirsten Stewart, Associate Director of Communications.
Thank you, President Schill, for allowing us time during board meeting to recognize the students, faculty, and staff who work hard every day to help make us Canyon strong. The students and employees who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of commendation and a small token of appreciation from the board and the administration. So the aim here is simple, and we'll continue this throughout the school year. We want to show the world how and why we are Canyon strong. And this is thanks to the drive and the dedication of students and the smarts and savvy and commitment of the Canyons District employees. Now, first, we would like to mention the hard work of our HR department, in particular, our HR recruiters. Now, we indicated at the beginning of the meeting, this would be a Canyon Strong recognition for our students, but there are some efforts by our employees I'd like to mention tonight as well, because it kind of pertains to our students. So Lori and Kelly are HR recruiters from the Human Resources Department. And in recent days, news reports have focused attention on the quantity and quality of candidates for teaching jobs in most large school districts. As of last week, we only had 3 positions left to fill among the 2,000 teaching jobs in Canyon School District. Now, of course, as the recent KSL TV news report noted, Canyons is able to attract high-quality candidates with competitive and salaries and benefits, thanks to the Board of Education. But Kelly and Lori crisscross the country every single year looking for the best possible talent for our schools. And sometimes the best and brightest is found right in our own backyard. Several of our teachers this year went to elementary, middle, and high school in the Canyon School District, went to college, and returned to be educators in the Canyon School District. So we are proving we are Canyon strong in our student ranks and our teachers' ranks as well. In Canyons, we build them strong to keep us strong. So a big thanks to Kelly and Lori for being our HR recruiters and looking here close to home at the students who are raised here in our neighborhoods who want to come back and teach here in our neighborhoods. Our students are encouraged to be Canyon strong from their very first week of school. They are told this on our traditional kindergarten college ready day. Our schools celebrated what we call romp and circumstance. Last week, elementary schools held kindergarten college ready day. This is the 16th year that Canyon School District has held out one day in the first week or week and a half of our youngest students' weeks in school to send the message that it's important to work hard every single day in elementary, middle, and high school. So when they graduate college and career ready. We provide signs that say we will be college and career ready. Get this, class of 2037. Yes, class of 2037. That's what this year's kindergartners are. They all received a blue wristband, as we have done for 16 years. In many of our schools, they drew pictures of what they would like to be when they grow up. You can see here that some of our kiddos actually had times when they put on costumes of what they wanted to be when they grew up. We see there some adorable veterinarians, firefighters, doctors. I think there's even a kitty cat up there. I'm not sure that that's what she wants to be when she grows up, but I think it was the costume she chose for the day. But still, it is a fun day for our kindergartners to hear from our teachers who often wear their college t-shirts and sweatshirts to encourage students to be ready for college and careers when they graduate from high school. Also, Our students are Canyon strong on the football field. The Corner Canyon Chargers scored big with a recent win over a national powerhouse. Now, typically we don't mention wins and losses on a weekly basis, but this is a big win for Canyon School District and the Corner Canyon Chargers. The world saw the Canyon how strong we are on the football field when Corner Canyon High School defeated IMG Academy in a 35-34 nail biter of a season opener. IMG was one of the top ranked football teams in the entire country. Corner Canyon walked away with the win. So congratulations to the Chargers. The team then catapulted to number 5 nationally and were named by USA Today as the #1 Utah High School Sports Stars of the Week. It was the defense that earned that status from the USA Today, and that's not bad press. So congratulations to the Chargers and Coach Care. And we also want to wish much luck to the Chargers, the Hawks, the Bengals, the Beat Diggers, and the Huskies as all of these fall sports season gets underway. Now, we also are Canyon strong when we help students who need the most help. When Connie Crosby first heard of the plan being hatched to rename the Road Home Homeless Shelter after her, in typical fashion, she tried to sidestep the honor. But when she learned that the students wanted to name it after her, that's when she swelled with pride and decided to accept the honor. So from now on, the major family homeless shelter in our district will be known as the Connie Crosby Family Resource Center. Over 25 years, Connie, who recently retired from Canyon School District, served as the McKinney-Vento liaison for students here in this area. She worked for us for 16 years from the founding of the Canyon School District, and she was a trusted ally, mentor, and listening ear to an estimated 8,750 children and their family members who lived, no matter how temporarily, at one time or the other at this new resource center. So members of the board, Dr. Robbins, Dr. Robinson, attended that announcement to celebrate Connie's accomplishments and also how we provide services to the students who need it the very most in our school district. Also, we are Canyon strong behind the wheel of our school buses when caring for our kids in the transportation department. So for many kids, their bus driver is the first person they see in the morning and the last person they see at the end of the day. We have celebrated Jeremy Klung's award-winning season as the top bus driver in the state, but what we haven't mentioned is his most recent award. He placed in the top 3 at the national competition among school bus drivers. That was this summer in Austin, Texas. Congratulations to him. If you haven't had a chance to see the Fox 13 story that they did on Jeremy and his accomplishments, please go to our Facebook page where we have it listed there. We also are Canyon strong when we stand together. Now, it's been a tough few weeks for so many of us since we received word on a recent Friday night about the tragic loss of a Jordan High student. Now, the death of any student at any time is challenging for our hearts, but it seemed extra difficult because it happened the very first week of school. As word spread about the incident, it seemed that all of Utah rallied around the Beat Diggers, in particular, the baseball players who had stood up and played with and against the Beat Digger who we lost a few weeks ago. Jordan High's administration and the student leaders showed great leadership. The Jordan High teachers and support staff did an amazing job to exude calmness and continue on with the school year. Our counselors, our school psychologists, our social workers, other administrators, they dropped what they were doing to support the Beat Diggers. We also want to commend Sandy Police for their quick response, emergency responders for their thorough response, and their quick acts of investigation. This is what it truly means to be Canyon strong. When it's so challenging, to stand together is when we stand together the most. President Schill, thank you for the time to present this Canyon Strong recognitions. We turn the time back to you.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda, and I will now take a motion, and please read the items individually. Oh, there are no patron comments tonight. I just skipped over that. So I will now take a motion for the consent agenda.
I'll make that motion. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, which includes item A, approval of minutes for August 20th, 2024. Item B, approval of hire and termination reports. Item C, approval of student overnight travel. Item D, approval of purchasing bids. Item E, approval of administrative appointment. And item F, approval of SCC exemption for gold miner's daughter and LSA for the 2024-25 school year.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is item 8, new business, and then item A, approval of sale of property, and Leon Wilcox, business administrator, will present this.
Thank you, President Schill. This is something that goes in with what we approved 2 weeks ago with the purchase of eBay, looking at liquidating some of our property that we have available and surplus out there that we don't think we need. The first one we want to look at and ask for your approval tonight is, I'll just wait for Ollie and Andrew to come back. But again, looking at liquid with the, as we're on a contract with eBay, looking to liquidate some of our surplus property that we have available. And the first piece is, again, this West Draper piece. It's just off 1/14th, well, maybe 1/16th, and just along the front runner tracks. You can see a outline of it there. It's about 11.7 acres. We bought that in a land swap with the Larry Miller Group back in 2018. We bought it for about 4.872. Ivory, who owns all that who owns that development to the north area, so you can see the outlines of the lots there. They would continue that development south. Okay, so they are the buyer. We reached out to them. They're very interested again in moving their development south. We had that appraised. You can see the appraisal. Well, we had it appraised, and then they have offered us 4% above that appraised value. Our district real estate agent, Colliers, we sat down and reviewed their offer with them. They feel like this is very comparable based on comps that they're seeing for raw land in the south part of Salt Lake County. So it's about $10.60 per square foot. That's how we measure it there. Draper City, as you know, always has the city has the option to match any offer we get. They have notified us in a letter stating they are not interested in buying this property, even though they do have that piece to the southwest there. They will be developing a park there, but they are not interested in moving that. They feel like they have plenty of acreage there. One of the things on the contract, or we call the REPC, which is on board docs, that Ivory will have a due diligence to perform their soil sample and testing, if you will, through December 6th. They have to put down $100,000 now, or whenever we approve the contract. Then on December 6th, they will put down another $400,000. That's when the escrow goes, if you will say, it becomes non-refundable. So then they would have $500,000 down. Our intent to close is we would not close on this property until we officially close on the eBay property. So we make sure we get that one first. But starting December 6th, as it stands, they would have $500,000 non-refundable down to us, with our intent to close around January 12th of 2025. Just so you see the eBay property here that we showed last time, we could look at we have 16 acres of developable land. We'd look at an elementary school. I will point up here behind you, but probably in the southwest corner here is where we would look to build an elementary school. And I always will preface this if we need it, you know, if the population grows to where we think it's needed. We like this because there's high density housing all around this place here. Also, it's very close to the point. It's just going to be a couple miles to the south, so we could draw there as if that develops out into housing, which I think some of it will. This place is about 2 miles or 4 or 5 minute drive from the Jensen property that we're looking to sell, so it's not far that way. And again, as I mentioned, we'd close on the eBay property first before we actually close on that. It does say that in the REPC on the first addendum there. So with that, that's all I have. Happy to take any questions, but there is I'll leave that up there as a possible board motion with that, so.
Okay, board, are there any questions about this? Mrs. Nybar?
Thank you, Leon. Just wanted to clarify that we did have with that appraisal that it is above what the appraised value was, and we did have a real estate professional looking at that.
Yes, Colliers is our real estate broker. They did sat down, reviewed the offer with Rick and myself. They feel like it is very fair to the other comps being sold there in the south part of Salt Lake County. So yes, this is about 500, as I said, about 560,000 more now than what we paid for it back in 2018.
Thank you for that clarification. I am the board member that represents West Draper and that community, and I just wanted to be very clear that we have hired a broker and that this is a reasonable, and a profitable thing for the district, and that, there's been a third party that's looked at that. Originally, as you've talked about, this was in preparation for a school to be built, and given the growth patterns and what's happened currently, and with our enrollment and looking at what we're doing at eBay, this is still providing a pathway for any, for lots of possibilities in the future for West Draper. And that's my biggest concern, is just wanting to be sure that that community knows that we're thinking of them, and we're trying to provide good pathways for them too for the future. So thank you for that.
Okay, thank you. If there are no other questions or comments, I will entertain a motion to approve this.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the real estate contract, or EPC, on board docs with Ivory Homes for $5,462,960, and authorize the administration to complete all documents related to the REPC and the closing of the sale. The closing should not occur until the purchase of the eBay property has been completed.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion or questions? Okay, seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Excuse me. The next item on the agenda is a policy update, and it's for new policy 500.23, extracurricular activities and student participation. And this is a second reading, and Jeff Christensen, Assistant Legal Counsel, will present this item.
I see your red line, but we can all read it as it's,
There is a PowerPoint.
there's a PowerPoint. Can you?
There's a PowerPoint.
or if you go to the next agenda item, I can look at the PowerPoint and present it that way because it's all on one. As much as I'd
No.
like to present on that, I don't want to steal Leon's thunder.
Yeah, it's on board docs.
No, it's okay. So I'll start by just stating that the extracurricular policy we brought forward in June, because we've been looking at our extracurricular activities and student participation for a number of reasons. One of them is legislative, which is a requirement to address if students that are engaged in extracurricular activities in accordance with state law determined to wear religious clothing, they're allowed to do so. So that's been incorporated into policy. The other elements that we've addressed is we begin the policy outlining the board's support of our extracurricular activities, particularly with their Portrait of a Canyon Scholar. So this affords students opportunities to participate in their educational experience, practical life situations, building self-confidence, et cetera. So that's outlined in the beginning of the policy. And then in that policy statement, we also indicate we support extracurricular activities sponsored by the Utah High School Activities Association, and we follow their incorporated rules. And then in our policies manual throughout our different sections, we have elements that address specifically coach and extracurricular advisor behavior. And so we've laid those out in a catch-all section in the policy that goes through the specific requirements for coaches and extracurricular advisors. Specifically,
Okay, they have it, Jeff.
all right. So specifically, in the coaches and our extracurricular advisors section, we address issues such as our non-discrimination policy about sexual harassment, discrimination. We talk about our discipline policy. We outline the expectations for coaches and role models. And specifically in the policy document, we reference all of the policies that are applicable about a criminal background check, clear language, how they're supposed to supervise students, and specifically those requirements that are part of an agreement, an extracurricular agreement that each coach is and volunteer, as well as anyone participating in extracurricular activities as an advisor or volunteer is required to sign. Personal conduct, employee conduct and professionalism, fiscal management, adhering to financial policies, the district's accounting manual, master fee schedules, and use of P cards, drug-free workplace, and a clear background check. So all of the elements that are required of an extracurricular supervisor are laid out in that policy, and they correspond to the agreement that it's required to be signed. The next section deals with the part I was referring to previously, which is the religious beliefs in uniforms, where a student has a right to, while participating in an activity, can wear religious clothing as they participate. Then we also have guidelines for those that are participating that aren't enrolled fully as Canyon School District students, whether they're for private, home charter, or online students, and we have those guidelines. And then we also have a complaint and concern section in the policy outlining steps for extracurricular activity concerns, which refer to our non-discrimination policy and our discipline policy, but it lays out the complaint process through a step one, which is an informal conversation with the coach or the extracurricular advisor. Then they can have an informal discussion with the principal and then file a complaint if they have not had their concerns addressed. This policy, as I said, was brought forward at the June 18th meeting before our summer break. And so this was tabled to bring back. We also received patron comment feedback at that June 18th meeting with a letter to the board and the policy committee, which we reviewed. And there have been some updates to the policy, which I'll review based on that feedback. The first is an issue that was raised just about time and participation in extracurricular activities. So the policy committee is recommending language at the beginning of the policy that we will recognize and prioritize students' ability to maintain balance in their academic studies and participation in extracurricular activities. And we'll be looking at that so that those that are participating that are required by Utah High School Activities Association to maintain a certain hour mark, that'll be looked at across entities that aren't particularly Utah High School Activities Association related. The other piece is that we've added language where to include meetings at the beginning of each school year with coaches and extracurricular advisors to address review policies and expectations with students, specifically our hazing and bullying, non-discrimination policies. So that will occur at the beginning of each school year or season with students. And then consistent with feedback received, we updated references to the non-discrimination policy to make those more explicit in our list of requirements for coaches so that it is referencing all policies outlined in the policy. And attached to board docs is a sample of a complaint form that would coincide with the complaint process. In our district, we have both an online reporting ability where someone can make a complaint, bullying, harassment, discrimination online based on the district's website, but you can also fill out a form otherwise and send it to the Department of Legal Services. With that, this policy is for second reading. Not possible action if there's feedback or otherwise regarding this policy. I can answer questions or you can send it to the policy committee.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions, board? Mrs. Oakes?
Thanks so much, Jeff. I'm really liking a lot of the changes on here. I think these are really helpful. So one of the questions I have with regard to training of coaches at the beginning of the year, I'm guessing, but maybe you can confirm for me whether or not part of the training that's included is the importance of using Parent Square and coach and parent and student communication. Is that, I know in the past we've had some issues where they've used other apps or whatnot to communicate, and then we kind of run into some problems. Can you address that?
So I haven't been involved directly in that training, but it's my understanding that Parent Square has been adopted for all teams and that communication is to run through Parent Square regarding team communication. I'm also aware at some of the high schools that team meetings for some groups and entities were occurring not on site, but have now been moved back to high schools for meetings. So we're really trying to funnel all communication through Parent Square and really make the school the center of operations for those groups.
That's great. Thank you. Another question I have with regard to that training is what kind of training do they receive with regard to their financials, like fundraising? Like how do they account for that? I know like PTAs in all of our respective schools have to give kind of a tight accounting. I'm curious how similar that works for our teams or extracurricular groups.
So I know for our travel teams, they're required to provide an accounting when they complete whatever travel that comes back to the board. Respect to travel, our team accounting, I wish Dr. Sherwood was here for that, Principal Sherwood, our director of high schools. I know that in our training, they're required to review the financial accounting manual, which has principles of our booster clubs. So that training is received through the financial accounting manual.
So, I mean, does that include things like their concessions, like other things that they may be collecting or requiring of the students? I know there have been concerns in the past that sometimes the students are asked to pay more than what was originally understood or whatnot. So I just would love to see like how that's kind of tightened up. I know it's good for me to know that they're receiving training. I would just maybe, I don't know if this is a request of the superintendent, but if we can get a little more information of what that training looks like, or maybe from from town, that would be helpful. Another question I have, as far as this complaint form is concerned, and it's helpful for me to see like what's on it and what they're able to fill out. Are these complaints kept in a database? I mean, if someone were to turn in a hard copy, how do we make sure that's not lost and that it's retained for records for the district?
In terms of those complaints, yes, they're logged because any complaint that would come to legal services would be logged through our office.
Okay, so we would have it like electronically moving forward.
Right, yeah, we would
Okay.
have a copy of a complaint that was received in our office. I know that with our online complaints that come in, those are tracked when people submit online. So we would have a record of complaints received.
Okay, that's helpful. And one other question, and this is kind of follow up also about the training for our coaches or whatnot, I'm trying to think, the conference that we attended up at Davis School District back in the month of June, where we were talking about the things that they've learned from the Department of Justice with regard to definitions of harassment versus other things, like even like difference between harassment language versus bullying language. I mean, like that, or profanity, that there are differences. I'm curious what we are currently doing, and maybe the superintendent can weigh in on this a little bit, to make sure that the understanding of those distinctive differences are making it out to our coaches, not just staying in-house. I mean, I want to make sure that we're really disseminating that effectively.
So superintendent can speak to the coaches. I know internally we've taken all of our definitions that are included in dashboard. And with our student services team, we reviewed all those during the summer and they've all been updated with statutory code and definitions. And we're working on coding and reliability through any offense that's coming in to dashboard.
I asked Dan to, I know he's not here, but at some point we talked about this in cabinet about taking what we learned at Davis and then overlaying what our current practice is to find where those gaps are. But I'm hopeful our new UHSA handbook will have a lot of this covered that we're getting ready to release. But I think having Dan do a report to the full board about what we've learned would be helpful.
I do think that would be awesome. I feel like, Karen was there with me. I learned so much and it was a massive paradigm shift on so many different levels. And I thought how all of us really could use this information. Did you feel that way, Karen? And to understand how that will impact our students all the way down, it's critically important. And I think it's especially important in situations where we have athletes or other students that are interacting, that our coaches receive effective training and understanding the nuances and definitions on some of those things. It's really because they are mentors to our kids. And if they are saying or doing things that are really problematic, we need to help them understand how to effectively address that. So thank you so much for your work. Appreciate it.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Board? Mrs. Nybar?
I just want to thank my fellow policy committee members that sit on the board and also Jeff and his team and everyone that helps with this. And I think the point with the coaches is really well taken. And that's something that we have discussed at length as far as that there are, even going back to our strategic plan and those committee work that we've done, that we have coaches that are non-teachers, and those coaches, that are just being paid like FTE and aren't here full time, that, they currently do have training, but we can even do more in that regard, as far as extra trainings we can do, and even on things like how to write up for overnight travel, approvals and things like that. And I think that's really important, as we have some coaches that, this is a difficult thing for them to navigate through some of our policies, even if it's procedural things, and making sure that they understand the ramifications and how to, write that up and write an appeal and what we're looking for those things, because I've had a lot of conversations with coaches who are, you know, essentially they're part-time faculty because they don't teach classes. So understanding the importance of, you know, student conduct and harassment and getting good training in that, and how to build positive relationships with their student athletes or team members, if it's debate team or drama or whatever it is, right? And having good positive interactions that's protecting these students' mental health and protecting, you know, their relationships with their fellow team members. So I think that's a really good thing. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
I just wanted to say thank you, Jeff, to you and the policy committees. Hard work that you put into this. The part that I was really excited about was how it's specific and easy to understand the complaint process. That when a parent has a concern about behavior happening with their athletic student or drama or wherever this happened to be, that there is a very specific and easy to understand process, and the timeframes are indicated and the form is right there. So I think that's a huge change. And I really, really appreciate that being available to our people. I think it's going to save a lot of heartache, and that I really appreciate the fact that you're saying that we're saving that information so that should there be a problem that becomes a trend, that we can address that in a more efficient way. So thank you so much. This has been great.
Okay, I just want to add my thanks. I really appreciate all the changes. I've had a few patrons reach out to me, and I really appreciate the policy committee like discussing these things. And I really do feel like this policy is in a really good place. And I know it took a lot of work, but I think it's really well thought out, and just has a lot of good pieces to it. And I also like the complaint process, and it's just very easy and step by step. So thank you all. So we'll just go on to the next item, which is the legislative update pursuant to USBE R277628 sensitive materials, policy 600.06 selection and reconsideration of school library materials. This is a first reading, and Jeff will continue to present this.
Thank you, President Schill. As you may recall, in the summer, we brought forward both our instructional materials policy and our sensitive materials reconsideration of library materials policies pursuant to HB 29 and the sensitive materials legislation. Shortly after we approved our policies, USBE, with the number of rules they need to amended their sensitive materials rule. What we're bringing forward to you today does not change much language in our policy. These are primarily legislative updates pursuant to the rule. There's 3 specific recommendations. In special areas in their rule, they require 2 or more employees to review a plausible claim before an objective sensitive materials review. In our initial draft of the policy, we only listed 1 employee. So we're just modifying ours to list 2 or more employees. That will be the district library media specialist and a teacher librarian. The procedure will not change. We're just adding an additional employee pursuant to the rule. In the second instance, they require USBE's recommendation, and rule indicates that for that objective sensitive materials review, there would be 3 or more members and at least 1 parent. In our initial policy adoption, we only included 3 members, but did not include 1 parent. So we've modified our committee to include the 3 members and at least 1 parent, selected in the same way we select other committee members as outlined in our exhibit, through members of either volunteer organizations, the PTA, or school community council. The third change is that they clarified that those responsible for procurement of materials or the individual that brought the challenge may not serve on a review committee. And so we've just noted in our definition that a teacher librarian serving on the review committee may not have had responsibility for procurement. Again, these are primary technical issues that were adopted or based on the board's rule. Lastly, in our discussion in the policy committee, we also added a notice of disclosure to members that participate in as committee members. In our exhibit, we'll let them know that based on the state law, their decision not only impacts the respective school, but also could have impact of removing books statewide based on the bill. Then lastly, we've also included a definition of a plausible claim to address issues where a claim may come forward where we may not have the library material in our collection, and our determination is a plausible claim is reasonable or credible. We don't have the material in our library, then those are not credible claims. These are primarily just legislative updates. This is for first reading with the intent of being a possible action at our next meeting. I can answer any questions.
Okay, are there any questions on this policy? Okay, looks
Thank
like
you.
there are no questions. Thank you so much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the strategic plan follow-up discussion, and Superintendent Robbins will lead us in this discussion. So we just thought it'd be a good idea to kind of follow up on our last self-evaluation we did at last meeting and just kind of further discuss where we're going with these committees.
Yeah, thank you, President Schill. This is exciting to have this discussion. I think Drew did a great job in our last board meeting, kind of taking us through a little bit of a self-reflection and self-assessment. But I think in the end, you know, thinking back when we finalized the strategic plan and we organized these committees, just the power in operationalizing this relationship between governance and administration and the board and administration to carry out the vision and the direction that the board has. So I just wanted to highlight, and this is just my own like brain dump in thinking about what are some of the things that we've accomplished over the short term or maybe the last couple of years, and really want to give thanks to our leads, Dr. Landward, Leon, Brian, who else am I missing, and Paula. They've done just a remarkable job of really keeping the ball moving forward and really prioritizing what is most important in the district. Sometimes, you know, we get kind of lost in the weeds on lots of different topics, and they're all important. But really putting them and framing them in a way that we can take action on those and then report back to the full board. So I guess out of this conversation, what I would like to see from the board is just your thoughts about, you know, do you like the framework we have in the format? Would you like to meet less, more? Do we rotate board members on committees? Do we add? We've talked about potentially vice chair. So I think all of that is open for discussion, but just let me share just a couple of things that we worked on. And again, this is just my processing in the last, you know, over the last couple of years, in about 30 minutes of the things that I could think of that we've really been focused on. In high quality learning, obviously, developing the plan for the Innovation Center and moving that forward, district PLC implementation, all-day kindergarten across the district, teacher prep time, arts integration, increasing brain booster time, early literacy training with letters, our program, our turnaround program at Copperview, adopting our Portrait of a Scholar, adopting and renewing our board indicators for accountability. We've also, school performance has been working with Deloitte and Sunlight Works on leadership development. So those are just a few things in high quality learning alone. Access and opportunity, change to the 7-period day at some of our middle schools, unified sports program, Life Skills Academy moving to Crescent, our teen centers to help address poverty, funding based more on program needs. It's more equitable, addressing our newcomers and our multilingual students, updating our elementary library book collections to get up to speed there, increasing special ed funding, our youth academy program expansion, our education foundation grants to continue to support our students. Those are just a few things. In human-centered supports, full adoption of Thrive Time, peer court as one of our intervention strategies, our leadership academy to help our high school students with those skills. And then I think this one too is, I don't know if you caught, there was an article, I believe it was in Forbes, talking about, that just came out this weekend, talking about districts now coming to the end of their funding with ESSERs and literally laying off hundreds of people at a time just in the last couple of weeks across the country, mostly in inner city school districts, but just so grateful to Leon and his leadership and being very thoughtful right in the beginning about how we might work through this with attrition and being wise with our funds. So by doing so, we were able to protect services like nurses, social workers, counselors, psychologists, mental health screenings. We've continued to advocate for compulsory education law to strengthen attendance. We've also looked at behavior, and the board approved those assistant principals in our elementaries. We're looking in the first round at zero cost. We're looking to expand that. We've also in human-centered supports really increased policy changes. So things like maternity leave, personal leave, these have all been in support of our employees and students. And then finally in operations, some highlights there. Parent Square with communication has been a game changer in the district. I think it started out a little rocky, but it's got better and better and better. We really appreciate Parent Square's willingness to work with us. And I know Jeff's been a big player in that to make sure that happens. Teacher and employee retention. I think this year might be the first year, at least since I have been superintendent, that I can confidently say, like, it feels like we're mostly staffed up. And you think about years past when we had dozens and dozens of positions open, even at this time. All of our capital projects, as mentioned, our lease revenue bonds, school safety, we did our self assessment and audit. What came from that are terrific projects, including vestibules in our schools that need those. And then again, just the great work by our legal counsel on policy, things like already mentioned tonight, sensitive materials, high school activities, cell phone travel, Utah Fits All scholarship, .gov. I mean, all of these things have been great to see come to fruition. Our buses are now equipped with GPS systems. Before they were using paper maps. That's been a huge thing. And then part of the plan to remember how important feedback is, listening to our constituents, continuing with superintendent tour, meeting with PTA, canyoneering night. We're still working and focusing on enrollment, which, by the way, Kirsten released our latest report. Our capture rates are up significantly from the previous year. So that's great that we're our students that live in our boundaries are re-enrolling with us. So that's awesome. So that's just a few things just off the top of my head. I know there are more. I apologize if I missed something, but kind of going back to Drew's counsel, I really like the idea of using the Nestor model that he proposed to us, maybe to take back as individual committees and maybe just do kind of a self reflection and assessment on where we're at on all the priorities that we have in front of us. And there are many, but kind of, again, overlaying the strategic plan with those priorities to say, yeah, these really are in line with our priorities in the strategic plan. Or if they're not, then maybe, you know, in their order of operation, maybe they take, you know, a different place in that. But I think going through that process and then making a decision about how often we want to report back to the full board, I think would be helpful. And then just doing more to really communicate and getting our plan to the end of the row. As I mentioned earlier, it was very enlightening for me when I met with PTA this last week at our luncheon. Really the first time that has been much less focused on crisis management and a lot more focused on the future, and just listening to their feedback about what that looks like and really leaning into the strategic vision. Those are places that we can get it to the end of the row where people want to engage. They want to know what our plans are as a district. So the more that we can do that with those, all of the stakeholder groups that we interact with, I think the better. And I'll just leave you with this and then open up for questions or comments. But I really like what Drew said when you're thinking about that self-assessment piece, like what's the end goal in those committees when we bring this forward to the board and how this becomes actionable and it really impacts outcomes. Sustain exceptional instruction, build leadership capacity, develop strategic direction, effectively leverage high quality implementation, and drive measurable school improvement. I mean, that is a really nice, I mean, to me, that's a great observation of what we're all about in Canyons. So with that, comments or thoughts?
Okay, board, Mrs. Tingy.
Thank you, Superintendent. I think that report was amazing. And when you list it out like that, it's no
Lot.
wonder that we feel like we've been busy
Yes.
because we have. But busy moving things forward.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate that. It came up at our last meeting and you mentioned it again about maybe creating either a vice chair or a co-chair position for those committees, because I personally think those committees have been very effective.
Yeah.
And I personally think that it's good to meet regularly like we have been and to report to the whole board regularly. I think what we're doing is good there, but I am interested in having a co-leader or a vice chair or something, because in between meetings, there really is some assignments that are given that sometimes it falls on that committee leader to take care of. And we know they have other aspects of their jobs that are very demanding as well. So maybe just a little bit of support and help in kind of facilitating the work of the committee, I think would be a good idea.
Okay.
Okay, any other board comments? So I do want to address it. And like when I first heard about this idea, I thought it was a good idea, but the more I've thought about it, I feel like that's going to blur the role of administration. Like I feel like the board going to get into an administrative role if we're co-chairs, because then are we going to be telling people in the district what to do? You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I guess I didn't see it as that way, but more like as a committee, if they make assignments, then the co-chair could help send out reminders to people for the assignment that they're supposed to do.
He would be directing staff though. Or are we reminding board members on what they have to do? Do you
No.
understand what I'm saying? I feel
Yeah.
like it puts us
So,
in a weird role.
No, yeah, I get that. And like creating the agenda for the committee, I don't know. I think it would be okay as long as it's something the committee asks to be done, but I can see your concern.
Yeah. Anyone else? Mrs. Nybar?
I really appreciate everything Mrs. Stingy said. I think it is amazing all that has been accomplished, but in order to ensure that we're moving forward in the direction we should be, I think something that's really pertinent, and I think in our study session last time when Andrew came back, who helped facilitate the strategic plan, I really feel like we need to make sure our decisions do align with the strategic plan. That is our North Star. And the thing I like about having board members help co-chair is I feel in a way that also it's board member responsibility to make sure that the committee work is aligning with the actual strategic plan. And so I think doing that, there's a lot of other districts that actually have board members chair committees. And not getting into the administrative role, but just ensuring the direction that the committee is headed is fulfilling that responsibility, that it's aligning. And so seeing as how the strategic plan came about through this awesome focus groups and we heard from teachers and parents and students. And, you know, and we are elected to represent all of them. And so I feel like in a way, we're kind of caretakers of that strategic plan to make sure that we're aligned. So that's why I would think it might be good.
So I understand your point, Amber. I can appreciate that because it is a fine line. I don't think that it's our role to give marching orders to the administration. As a board, the 7 of us give marching orders, right, to the superintendent who then oversees that. But I do think it's important that the board does have some say in what goes on the agenda. Like, I think from meeting to meeting, it's tricky, right? Because I think sometimes as board members, we can be like, I'd really like to wave my magic wand and see this thing happen. But the truth is, like, you know, a lot of the people in our district, they understand the realities and the intricacies involved with what it takes to create something. I guess if we were to have a role of a co-chair, I think that responsibility would have to be very clearly delineated and have some clear parameters placed on it. I think making sure that we are like, if we are, any of us do serve in that capacity, and that probably should rotate amongst the board members that are on it. And maybe that's what happens, is that there's a different co-chair for each like subsequent meeting, right? Like that it's a rotating thing, but recognizing that we're not representing the whole board necessarily. It's one voice, but that they work together to figure out what's going to come on that agenda, what's going to be discussed. It's tricky, right? Because they're in the business of making sure that all of the business gets done from day to day. And we're in the business of listening to our constituents and trying to represent those that have voted us into this position. And so I do think having those two roles work together, at least to oversee an agenda, but that obviously the execution is not our role. I don't know. Any further thoughts on that?
Mr. Edel had a comment.
Yeah, I guess I want to fourth the sentiments of my colleagues now with that. I think that as we look forward, our role as board members is to push forward that strategic plan, push forward the vision for the district as the elected leaders for the district. And as co-chairs of the committees, I think that would be effective, especially with certain committees in particular. I think would be a bit more effective. But I can't say it any more elegantly than my colleagues have said. And as far as the appointment or structure, the thought I'll put out there would just be that the committee board members vote for whoever is going to be chair. But I'm not tied to any of the ideas. That's just one of the ideas I wanted to throw out.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Pedersen.
On the committees that I happen to be on, I feel like we have worked as a team. I don't know that I need I don't need to be the vice chair. Does that make sense? To make sure that things are matching the strategic plan, because we work together. And if you have a concern, you just bring it up. And I have felt very supported, or at least I'm consulted quite frequently by my district committee people to see what my opinions are. So I don't know, I'm not on all the committees, but I'm not against having a rotating, you can work with this person, but they usually delegate the jobs without my having to be the one that delegates the jobs. To be honest, they're more efficient. They know who it is. They see them every day. I don't. So I know she's being back. So I'm just not sure that we need to have a formal job, but I could see that we need to make sure that we're stepping up and doing our board member duty and making sure that we're lining up with the strategic plan. And if that's not happening and you're not happy with the person coordinating your committee, then maybe we need to talk to our superintendent and express those concerns and see what his advice would be for that particular committee. So I'm not necessarily in favor of having a specific new job. I don't mind having input because I feel like I have had input on the committees that I happen to be on, but I don't know if that's true in all the committees.
Well, and maybe it's just, maybe it's, can we give input? Can an email go out to the full committee asking for input on the agenda? I mean, right? Like, because Karen does have a good point there. Because we usually don't come
Yeah,
up with the agenda, and maybe we can help form the agenda, but I don't. Yeah, I'm just
Well,
really concerned.
something to,
about that.
I just want to add to this. I think there's great strength and power in board governance and district administration working together. We've seen that, right? Like we have worked and worked and worked to blur those lines. What comes with that though is great responsibility on both parts. Just like I've said before, there's times where administrators are pushing into governance, just like there's times when board members are pushing into administration. So, I mean, the fact that we can talk about it, which it's always a little awkward and it's sensitive. Like, I mean, I think that's great leadership. That's what we do, right? And I think the sense of team and the sense of community and the sense of being responsive to each other that way. But I also have to say that we know when there comes time when there's fog because of the pressure from all different angles that we hone in on what is singular to us. And I think, the fact that we have this conversation, we can keep talking about it, it strengthens, it does strengthen that relationship. It strengthens the bond between us making happen, and executing your vision. But I think we always, as any good leader, we always go into this eyes wide open about like, how is this functioning? And maybe we revisit this more often than we have to just talk about how's it going? Are we, like you said, Karen, are the committees functioning how we want? And as long as we keep doing what we're doing, I think there's great potential there.
So I was just thinking, what if we made sure that it was standard practice that 10 minutes at the end of every meeting, we discuss what the next agenda is going to be
Mhm.
and provide input on that
And give assignments, because those are the two things you're
Yeah.
saying that.
and
we
give
need-
assignments. Yeah, I mean, like if we were to make sure that that's part of the last part of every agenda. And that, because then that way I feel like there's more continuity of expectation and communication. I know sometimes our committee meetings get really bulky and there's a lot to discuss, but if we hold sacrosanct those last 10 minutes and say, all right, it's time for us to get feedback from everyone here. What belongs on here, our next discussion. And I feel the same way actually about scheduling them, about making sure that we are meeting regularly. I think one of the best things that we've done actually is have regular reports from each of those 4 areas in the board meetings. I think we need to make sure that those are happening right as read.
So we've done that, every other month? Can't remember
I think
quarterly. Can't remember.
We have a
Okay.
report every month from one committee.
Okay.
And I don't know, I mean, maybe that's something you want to talk to the director. I don't know what we call those committee chairs about like
Feed-
how often we want to meet, how often they want to report, and maybe give us feedback. But also I'm wondering, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, did you already give us your answer on whether you think it's a good idea for co-chairs? Did you kind of already just say that in a nice way?
I can see the benefit. I can also see, as a cautionary tale where this can go wrong too. So I think I mean, at least since I've been here, I feel like we have blurred those lines. I think, at least I don't feel like at least in board meeting, that there's ever surprises or that board members aren't aware of what's going on. All of that's in front. So I think that's a very positive. So I'm giving you kind of a political answer, Amber, that's cutting it down the middle, unfortunately. But I can see the benefit, and I can also see, you know, a problem that can arise with it. But I think we just have to stay committed to what you know, what we're here for. If we focus in on the strategic vision and we're able to continue to dialogue and work through that gray fuzzy area between governance and administration. Most of my career, I don't think, frankly, boards and administration really have this conversation very often, because it is kind of, you know, awkward. And it's like I've said before, there's always the impartiality piece to this too, in how, you know, you handle it as the body that has to ultimately make the decisions. That's all complicated, but man, I mean, that was just 30 minutes of me just doing a brain dump. And so if you're wondering, like, what have we actually got traction on? Yeah, we've been busy. Like we've done a lot of great work, and I see that continuing. So
Okay, so I know you guys have comments, but can I just ask the board, are you okay with Amanda's suggestion of at the end? Or do you still want to talk about the co-chairs at the end, having time to talk
At the
about the
end.
agenda, set maybe assignments, and then what scheduling the next meeting?
one thing I'll add to, kind of to Andrew's point, I mean, you know, the idea of rotating or giving other board members the opportunity, you know, where am I assigned as vice chair for perpetuity and beyond, or is it like, do we change? Is there a planned every 2 years there's a rotation or a new?
Yeah, well, that is something I wanted to ask the board. So far, we've pretty much kept the same people on the same committee. So in January, I mean, I don't know do you think it's a good idea every 2 years to change up who's on the committee, or you feel like we should stay since we have the history? Or, I mean, what does the board think on that? Okay, then Mrs. Teeny, then Mrs. Nyman.
Yeah, so I'll respond to that question first. I think it is good to switch it up. Our practice has been every 2 years, as a new board is constituted, to revisit all the committee assignments. So I think that is a good idea. And then just quickly back to this, to what Mrs. Oakes suggested. I think that's a really good practice. Those ideas are good. I just want to say that my experience on the committees, if I've wanted something on the agenda, I contact the lead, and it's fine, and it gets on the agenda. I was just really looking at a way of being more supportive to the lead in just kind of the facilitating it, everything from just sending out reminders of when the meeting is, to reminders of, you know, if people have been given assignments. If they're given assignments by the committee, and I as a board member remind someone, you were going to gather this information, I don't see that as giving direction. I just see that as following through with what the committee decided they needed for the next meeting. And then also just with the task of, you know, keeping the minutes and things like that, I think of the meetings might be something that could be helpful. But I'm fine if the rest of the board feels like being very more intentional in summarizing the discussion and articulating what needs to happen next is, you know, that would be a good way to. My thought was just to kind of help ease burden on those leads of those committees.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Nybar, then Mr. Edel.
I just wanted to comment. I think the idea of having co-chairs with board members, in my mind, is not because I don't think our administrators are amazing. I do. And I've loved the time on the committees. And I also think it's pretty neat what's happened with implementing the strategic plan. I feel like just actually the whole process of getting the strategic plan out created some really neat synergy between the board and administrators and chairs that we hadn't had in the past. And I think we all really felt that way. And so that was pretty innovative. And I think it did something pretty awesome for how we work together. And so I think we should not be too tentative and too worried about making some changes or trying it out, because maybe that would provide greater synergy. Maybe we would have that experience like we did when we were formulating the strategic plan and we were in our tables and things like that, where it was like, wow, we have this cool, we're more aligned together. We're able to hear and so I would caution just as the board that that's something we can always try. And I don't think any board member really wants to be an administrator or do any of those things, or, take over in any of the administrator or chair's work. We appreciate them. We appreciate their expertise in their field and all they do. But maybe the result would be something like that strategic plan where we go, wow, we're in a different place than we would have been. So I think it's worth taking a risk and trying it. And if it doesn't go well, we could always not. But sometimes I think the best way to elicit change is one step forward into taking that little risk and making a change and seeing what happens. So that's my thought on that. And then as far as rotating, I think, yeah, it's a great idea to rotate. I think that it would be good to look at, I think ever since I've been on the board, sometimes we do have people that even when we're changing up committees, they still stay on the same committee, because they're saying, I really like that committee, I'd like to stay, but no one else wants it. Yeah. But at least it gives us the discussion where, people can express interest and, and we can diversify a little bit. So I think it's a good idea.
Good memories of Mont saying he wanted to stick on the foundation committee, Chris. Just have to say. He was not coming off of that committee.
Okay, Mr.
But
Evans.
Andrew.
Yeah, I feel like I just agree with other people. This whole meeting is the only thing that I do. But yeah, I really like the point that Holly made in terms of the closer working relationship and the closer collaboration. That being said, if there wasn't sufficient support for that model, I do like the Amanda compromise. Right, or both of them together. I think that's a good step forward. And I think just holding this conversation shows that, we probably need periodically to look at what do we need to do to work best, right? Because maybe we come up with an idea and it's not the best, or it's not the best implemented. And so just as we're having this discussion, this isn't saying that we're doing anything wrong. It's just saying that, hey, something needs to change, not because something's wrong, but just because maybe there's a better way for right now that we can do something. Maybe it wasn't the right way before. Maybe it won't be the right way in the future, but maybe it is for now. That can help things be just a little bit better. And then as far as committees, I absolutely think that we should revisit committees and look at reassignments. When you look at a lot of different kind of senior level jobs out there, there's always rotation. Even if you look at the administrators in our schools, they get rotated regularly. That helps to bring in fresh eyes, fresh ideas. And while there's a benefit to having that long-term memory, I think we have that in administration. And so for us as board members, I think it's a really good opportunity for us to come in fresh and to make sure that we don't get stale.
Okay, Mrs. Pedersen.
This is a quick comment, I promise. I don't mind looking at something new, but I have to be careful, and I have to remind myself, because I get this feedback from people when I'm out in the communities, that sometimes our administrators and our district facilitators, all the different people that we're working with, we have to be careful not to micromanage. we have a tendency to ask for lots and lots and lots of details that just adds a ton of burden to what they're doing. And I don't know that if we're trying to coordinate with them, if that's not more work. I know when I had parents say, can I come in and volunteer in my classroom? I promise, especially when I had the upper grade kids, it was more work to have the parents in the room. I promise. And if we already have a relationship where we feel like we can stand up to what we think, I think that if we just focus on the strategic plan and keep bringing that up, and that's our responsibility to make sure that everything's focusing in on that. And then as a committee, we prioritize and not try to go in 110 directions. I still think we have done so many amazing things. Are there some things that are going okay right now that we can pull back on pushing ahead, that we can let them ride for a little bit and look at where our true needs are? Where do we need to build things up? And I don't know, being a committee chair is going to help that. I almost feel like I'm imposing more work. I promise. It feels like micromanagement from my educator background. So anyway, that's just my quick opinion.
Okay, okay. Leon, go ahead.
Can I-
Are you the one?
Yeah. If I could say something, first of all, I apologize because a lot of this is my doing here. And second of all, I know every one of you want to be on the audit committee, so you really need to back off on.
You guys,
on
it's
that
the best. I'm just
desire
telling you,
to be
it's the
on that.
best.
Just as a preface, and I don't want to speak for Amber, Brian, or Paula, chairing the operations committee, and we talked about this at our meeting. So we met, Drew was here 2 weeks ago, and we met 2 days after that as a committee. And so I brought this up. And so I think Amanda's point is spot on, because on the agenda, I try to send out reminders to everyone on my committee, and there's 10 or 12 on the operations committee. I just want to make sure I'm trying to meet the needs of all 10 or 12 members. And if they have anything they want to bring up, I hope they put it on the agenda. Sometimes I do get requests to add things on, and we always do that when they do come. I think Amanda's point is right on, because if I don't, then the committee is made up of what Leon wants to, the meeting is what Leon wants to talk about, and there's only so much debits and credits and football we can talk about for the time being. So, but I think that would be very helpful and give everybody ownership of the committee, to take a few minutes afterwards and just debrief that meeting and start making assignments out. I do think every committee should be mapped out or scheduled out. We've scheduled out one meeting every month till the end of December. So ours are mapped out the next 4 meetings. I think every committee should do that so everybody is on the same page. But I think that would be helpful to a committee chair. I don't know if Brian or Amber feel that way, just to have everybody buying in and helping set the agenda, so it's just not all one person.
Are you done?
I'm done.
Okay, I think that's great. So I do have an idea for kind of a compromise. Since it was operations that came up with this idea, what if you guys did like a pilot and have a co-chair and then report back to the board before we make a decision? And you can tell us the pros and cons. The other thing, board, I want you guys to remember is in January, we're going to have possibly two new board members. So, let's just think about the future and how that's going to go. But I agree with Karen, because I am really worried that this is actually going to cause more work on our administrators. It's going to be another meeting. They have to meet with us to decide the agenda. I think it's creating more work, but okay. So do you guys like the pilot idea? Should we just go with the end of the meeting idea? I need you guys maybe just to quickly say how you feel about it so we know how to move forward.
So just to clarify, meeting schedule, reporting to the board, and a rotation every 2 years, that feels pretty locked in.
Those are all
right?
good, yes.
That everybody's good with that. Okay.
And I think we're all good with the idea of like the last 10 minutes should be give assignments, give agenda items, things we want to see at the next meeting. I think that's just what we should be doing as best practice. But I don't know. Is there still a majority of you that want to do the co-chair or no? Okay, those guys are all saying no, and I say no, so
No to all the committees or no to piloting it?
No to all committees or pilot? I mean, because yeah. Pilot, yes or no? No, they're saying no. I mean, I think we just move forward as we're doing and try to give better input and work together, if that's okay, unless Amanda's going to change her vote.
I'll change my vote if we don't commit to having the last 15 minutes to address the next piece. I really feel like it could address the majority of the concerns.
How often, I mean, you think about, we leave so many loose ends at the very end and then we're, you know, and it's no one's fault.
always
They're just-
rushing.
Cause we're all,
I feel like-
everything that we talk about is super critical. But I think just tying it up at the end and saying, okay, what are we committed to at the next meeting and whose responsibility to do what? I think that'd be very helpful.
If we can commit to that and maybe address this in another 6 months to see whether or not it took care of what we're thinking.
I mean,
I'm
'cause
interested
that's the
in seeing
thing,
that.
we can always bring it back.
Well,
Obviously,
and I
for
want to
discussion.
just build on what Holly mentioned too. Like I love the fact that, you know, our playbook can change. It doesn't have to be, we don't have to run the same plays over and over. Like if it's something that we need to change, then Andrew's point, let's change, let's do something different. So, I mean, that's been part of our DNA is to be innovative, to think different, and we can always find better ways to galvanize what we do. So.
Well, also a board member could at the end of the meeting say, do you want me to send out reminders, right? I mean, we could offer to do that. So, okay, Mr. Edo.
Don't take this the wrong way. My only request with this really is that maybe you can pass down that this isn't an additional 15 minutes. We have some committee chairs that are really good at what they do, but meetings aren't what they excel at. And so they tend to run over routinely.
Well, we're all in the room.
So to turn an hour over into an hour 15 over.
I mean, I've taken us, I think, what, an hour and a half. You're right.
But it's a big deal, right? Especially if we have things planned and to be like, well, I guess I can't participate in that portion because I have to run to this other event that's scheduled. Because
Okay, well, I think, are we done with this item? I think we've given some good direction and yes,
Okay, so you suggested to have it piloted, and I felt like 3 of us here were good with that.
Four said no.
I know, but you suggested it, so then you changed your mind.
No, I was trying to build a compromise. I
I know, but to be clear, that was my question. So just to be clear, you suggested piloting it in one committee, and 3 of us said yes, but then you changed your mind. You don't want to pilot it in one.
I was just trying to come up with, if 4 of you wanted that, I was fine with that. I was trying to find a compromise.
But you're saying you were fine with that if there was someone else besides us 3 that wanted to pilot it. Okay,
I would.
I just
prefer-
wanted to be clear.
Yes.
I needed to be clear because I like trying new things. And for this board to say, no, we don't even want to try it, we'll revisit it in 6 months. I feel a little like, oh, that was an opportunity to at least try it, because we could always try it and then say, yeah, it didn't work or we didn't like it. So I just wanted to be clear. So Amber, you're okay. All right.
Yeah. But if you want to.
I guess since everyone's in the room, right? We're all on notice of the fact that if we don't feel like this is working, right? And we don't feel like people's voices are being heard and actually reflected in the agendas and what we're discussing, then we'll bring it back. So I think we commit, what month is it? I don't know, February?
September 3rd.
So
Okay.
let's bring it back by February and revisit it and see how we feel about it, right? But I think it's a good renewed determination of the fact that we want to make sure that the perspective of the board and all of those on the committee are represented. So
So I I have one more thing. I'm just wondering if you could talk to those the chair people and just ask their input on the meetings regularly. Like, are we giving them enough time to get work done in between? I mean, maybe you could like
Well,
give us some feedback on
I
it.
think, just my observation, McKay and I attend all of them. I think at times, the time between the meeting and the next meeting is probably not enough time to really get traction on some of the things that we're working on. But having said that, it's never a dull moment, right? I mean, it's just one thing after another that comes up. And so I think if we didn't meet often enough, I mean, who would have thought that, Utah Fits All of a sudden is in our lap, right? Like that totally unintended. But with our legislation that comes down and what our legislators do, there's no downtime. I mean, I think we're constantly trying to interpret rule and statute and what needs to go to policy or what needs to come in front of the full board. And so I think it's kind of the reality that we're in is this is a treadmill that we're not going to get off of. It's just what it is. And until, we go from 200 bills to 50, which I don't think is going to happen, then I think this is just our reality. So, but I think again, I love the fact, just revisit, reflect,
Yeah.
hone in, revise.
Well, and maybe each committee, I mean, if what a committee is working on is going to need more time, then
Yeah.
let's be open with that and
Yep.
say, hey, we need 2 months to work on this, not a month.
Yep.
So let's just in committees discuss it at the time.
That's great.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Okay, now I need a motion to adjourn the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education.
I will make that motion that we adjourn the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Now I need a motion to convene the meeting of the local building authority of Canyon School District.
I move that we convene the meeting of the local building authority of Canyon School District.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, is there any discussion to the motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are now.
President, I didn't say I am just abstaining, but I don't want to say nay.
Okay, we have one abstain. The rest aye. So item A is approve. Oh, sorry, we already did that. Oh, no, we do need to that. Now we need to approve the agenda for the local building authority of the Canyon School District for September 3rd, 2024.
I move that we approve the agenda for local building authority of Canyon School District for September 3rd, 2024.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that motion.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion to approve the agenda for the local building authority for Canyon School District for September 3rd, 2024. Any discussion to that motion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Just abstaining.
Okay.
For the
Mrs.
agenda.
Nybar is abstaining and the rest is you. So it's not unanimous. The other 6 of us voted in favor of that. Okay, now we will turn, now we're on to item 11, the business items of the local building authority of Canyon School District. And I'll turn the time over to Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Thank you, President Shell, and appreciate that discussion on our strategic planning committees. I have to say, I really do appreciate our committee, Amanda, Chris, and Nancy having on it. So sometimes we have long discussions. We go sometimes 2 hours. So, and with that, I have to say right on cue as we got to this agenda item, our financial advisor, Matt Dugdale, came in from a Stiefel he's been with us many years helping us through issuing bonds. So I may have him answer any questions you may have. Couple things just to give you an update and a schedule of the eBay property and how we're going to fund that, how we're going to close, when we're going to close on that, and the process of issuing bonds to cover that. As you know, the contract we approved, so we're in a contract. We approved that 2 weeks ago. We have a due diligence period until October 20th. We have to have a public hearing on issuing the bonds to pay for this. We'll schedule that for October 1st. There has to be a waiting period. I'll get to that in just a moment here. During the month of October, we'll prepare offering statements for, the companies who will purchase the bonds, and we'll also meet with rating agencies. Look to close on those bonds when we sell those bonds around November 20th. That would be after the election. Usually rates tend to dip a little bit after the election. So that's when we plan to issue them, when we close on the bonds and then on the property around the middle of December. And you can see the property that we had showing up there earlier. Couple things with this past 2024 legislature, they passed a bill, SB 86, local government bond amendment. So how we issue bonds, go about this process, we've done it twice before, issuing lease revenue bonds, but we have to do a little bit different process this time around with that. So we have to read a statement resolution that will need approval from the LBA. We'll do that tonight. We also need to take a traditional parameters resolution that we'll also ask you to do tonight. And then those are both on board docs. And then on board docs, there's what they call a third supplemental of indentured trust. That is, since as the Board of Education, you are leasing the facility from the LBA. Since you are essentially one board, you have to have a third party come in and make sure that lease payment is paid or that bond payment is paid every year, and that is Zions Bank. And so that they've done that for our previous two bond issuance as well. After the statement resolution, this is one of the things that is new. Note too, that after the statement resolution that is adopted, hopefully tonight, we have to place an ad in the paper providing notice for the public hearing. So we'll place that ad this week, and the public hearing cannot be for at least 2 weeks after that ad is placed. So that's why we cannot have the public hearing at the September 17th meeting. We have to wait till the October 1st because there would not be enough time for that to meet that 2 weeks requirement. Couple things on financing the building purchase. Again, we'll talk property sales, agreeing to go under contract for one piece tonight. We'll look at other pieces in the future. There's a few others out there. Lease revenue bond. Again, we're going to request that you authorize us to borrow up to $50 million. Right now, based on the way the market is playing right now, we'd like to look at $45 million. But there's lots of other contingencies based on that. What is needed renovations of the building. We talked about maybe an outbuilding if needed. We also talk about, this is where our small capital projects get into that. How much money can we put towards the eBay purchase, but then also maintain our other buildings as well. Our current lease revenue bond payments that we've, from the ones we did in 2021 and the one earlier this year is about $9.5 million. That goes through 2031. We'll look to increase that amount up to about $12 million or about $2.5 million more. But the higher payments, we're going to try to push out or defer longer. That is, we want to grow with the point. Okay, so, and then also try not to have as big as possible tax increase as well. So the bigger payments will be we are proposing be in that 2032 to 2040 range. I have a chart here in just a moment. Again, this is, to cover that $2.5 million bond payment increase. The average tax impact on the average house, could be between $20 to $25, depending on, again, variety of other factors with the property sales and other capital projects. Okay. So that's where we're looking at on that to generate that money. Of course, the state could play a role into it with their legislature and their stabilization account, but so there's so many factors out there that we're still evaluating, and we'll have to watch as time moves on. You can see this is what we're proposing here. The red line is what, we issued in 2021 for approving Park Glacier Hills. You can see that drops way down starting in the 32 year. The blue line is what we issued earlier this year for Jordan, Eastmont, Hillcrest, Corner Canyon. You can see that rolls off in 2038. We do intend to keep that, layer that green on for the next few years. There'll just be a small interest only payment this year, but then starting in 26, get up to around that $12 million mark. We'll probably fine tune the numbers there a little bit as we get closer. But look at that and then continue that out for the bulk of it in the 2032 to 2040 range there. So again, that is how we're proposing to structure this going out. We want to take, I wanted to compare the two charts. So one is the one on my right is what I just showed you on the previous slide. That's the lease revenue bonds. But you can see on the one on my left is the general obligation bonds. And so as they start dropping off in that 2031, 2032 year, again, we're layering this debt on and actually have lesser debt payments. But I just we're trying to even them all out between our GO bonds and our lease revenue bonds going forward. Again, our GO bonds, they're still be at that 45.5 million range for the next 5 years through 2029. Then they do start dropping off quite a bit after that, as you can see. So trying to leverage it all out that way. So there is two motions that are on that we'll have to have you read into the record tonight, and this would have to go right into the minutes. This is part of SB 86, and this is what they call the statement resolution. I won't read it because we'll actually ask one of you to actually read this into the record. That has to be read in a part of the bill. That has to be read in a public meeting. And then there's motion 2. This is what we call the parameters resolution, giving us the authority to move forward with, starting the process of issuing the bonds. So there's motion 1 and motion 2. I should say that again, we won't have anything at the September 17th meeting unless you'd like to bring something back as far as looking at financing or anything like that. We're happy to do that, but no motion or hearing it that way. But then on the October 1 public hearing, we will have to, once we go through the public hearing process, we will have to adopt this parameters resolution again as an LBA. Then you have to adjourn back as a Board of Education and adopt it as a Board of Education again on that night. So there is a process coming for both. So I just want to give you a brief update on what will be coming again. So actually motion 2 will be adopted tonight and then after the public hearing on October 1st. So without any questions or comments, happy to answer
Okay,
those.
board, are there any questions about this? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion, and we need to do motion 1 first.
I move that we approve LBA statement resolution, which states the local building authority of Canyon School District, Utah, hereby intends to issue a lease revenue bond. The purpose of said bond is to provide funds to A, finance all or a portion of the costs of acquisition and remodeling of a high school / innovation center and related improvements, the project. B, fund any required debt service reserve fund. And
There should be a C. Yeah, sorry.
C, pay costs associated with the issuance of the bonds. The estimated amount of the bond is $50 million.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. Is there any discussion to this motion? I do want to add one thing, and even though we're approving 50 million, it doesn't mean that we will take all that out. We can take up to that amount. Just I want to make sure that's clear to the board. Okay, so all in favor of approving this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining?
Nay.
Okay, thank you. Now we have motion number 2.
I move that we approve LBA Traditional Parameters Resolution, which is a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale by the local building authority of Canyon School District, Utah, the authority, of not more than $50 million aggregate principal amount of its lease revenues bonds, Series 2024B, the bonds, fixing the maximum aggregate principal amount of the bonds, the maximum number of years over which the bonds may mature, the maximum interest rate which the bonds may bear, and the maximum discount from par at which the bonds may be sold, providing for the posting of a notice of public hearing and bonds to be issued, providing for the publication and posting of a notice of intent to issue a release revenue bond and public hearing, providing for the running of a contest period and related matters.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to approve the LBA Traditional Parameters Resolution. Are there any comments or discussion? Mrs. Nybar.
I would just like to restate and go on public record saying I believe a general obligation bond would have provided much more public engagement, and I feel strongly a project like this deserves that with more of a broad-based input. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Okay, that vote is 6-1. Okay, now it is time to adjourn our meeting of the local building authority. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn the meeting of the local building authority of Canyon School District.
Okay, thank you. I have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That motion passes unanimously. Now we will reconvene our meeting of the Canyons Board of Education, and I need a motion to do that.
I move that we reconvene the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second to reconvene. Any discussion to that? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And that motion passes unanimously. Okay, thank you. We are to the end of our meeting, and it is just staff comments. So Superintendent.
I mentioned earlier, just big thanks to our PTA, Liz Miles and their leadership team. Last week we had lunch. Thank you to all of our board members that attended. It was great to collaborate with our PTA and get to just dialogue and listen to their concerns and celebrations that are going on with PTA. So shout out to them.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. Mr. Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Yes, thank you. Just one thing, emailed today from the state, and you probably saw it on KSL or on the news, that the governor is going to take some of the leftover ESSER funds and use it to pay down some of school district's lunch debt. We have, in our district, we have about 157,000 of unpaid debt from our active students, some additional more from students who have actually left the system. So we do appreciate that. We'll probably get in that $50,000 range once it's all settled out with all of the districts. But I appreciate the governor using that. I also appreciate many business partners. We had several donations to help pay off debt, around $15,000 that people donated this year. We appreciate that. And also a big initiative starting at Silicon Slopes to help all districts statewide pay down debt. So this is a much needed thing. So we appreciate everyone's help with that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We are going to start our board comments with Mrs. Pedersen tonight.
First, I'd like to say how much I enjoyed participating each day at the superintendent's lunch with the PTA and SEC. They are marvelous people, and it was fun to feel their energy and to get to know them a little bit better and to hear of their concerns one-on-one. I think it's important that they see that how much the district does need their help and how much we support them and that we appreciate that they support us. It's a two-way street. We couldn't make it without them. So that was a really fun event, and I appreciate their allowing us to have that for them. I think that was really great. And I had a ton of fun going over to Willow Canyon Elementary for the kindergarten college ready day. It was really fun to walk around. We all wore our college shirts. I'm a minority. I was Utah State. There's a lot of other BYU and U of U are still the big ones. But anyway, wandered around to the 2 kindergarten classes and looked at the things that the kids were wanting to be. And some of them had a really hard time narrowing it down. And I kept wanting to say, but you can be them all. Because nowadays, you don't have to have just one career. You can have many. But it was really fun to see what they wanted to be. And I agree with Jeff that the funnest one was probably the queen. One of the little girls wanted to grow up to be the queen, which might be interesting coming from the United States. But it was just really fun to see their hopes and expectations and how enthusiastic they were about that. So I appreciate that we have these kinds of activities in our schools and that our students are learning early about their possibilities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Millerberg.
I just want to give a shout out to Peer Court. I attended Peer Court and they were swearing in all the members that are going to participate in that. And it is really exciting to see it from both directions. I'm excited to see the students that have chosen to be a part of the Peer Court and all that they will learn from being judges of not necessarily their peers in their school, but peers of theirs within Canyons District. And I'm excited for this piece of intervention to stay off some of our students who are on the wrong track and making choices that would otherwise send them to the judicial system. I want to compliment our police officers. They were part of introducing each of the tables, and we had people from Salt Lake County. We have a new partner, which I met at the PTA meetings that Stand for Kind. That's an organization that's coming to us in such a collaborative partnership with our district. And these people are strong and supportive, and they're in our community, and I'm excited to see them be involved. Because it is Founders Month, I want to make a statement that's kind of negative and bold, but I wanted to read my feelings. I have been deeply troubled by the Utah legislature recent emergency session aimed at altering our state constitution. I feel that this was a rushed measure that was clearly a response to a citizen-led ballot initiative. It raises a lot of alarms. It makes me concerned as an individual that the priorities of our elected officials are not the priorities of the citizens which elected them to represent us. The power of the people to initiate a ballot measure is one of the few remaining checks on government overreach. And when legislators manipulate the system to suppress the voices of their constituents, it reflects a very dangerous precedence. And I just want to go on public notice to say our legislators should be working harder to represent us as public officials that have been elected to in my case appointed, represent our students. And instead of working against us, I would like to see them be more advocates in working with us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Oaks.
So it has been a fun start of the school year with so many different things. I have kids involved in tennis and in mountain biking, which means I'm either at a racetrack or a court somewhere almost every day of the week. But between all of that, it's so joyful actually for me to see the kids from all over the district competing. In fact, the mountain bike race, even though that's not a high school Utah activity or high school activities association sport, there are a lot of kids in our district that participate, and we have teams from Brighton and Alta and Hillcrest and all our comprehensive high schools. And it was a really dusty day down in Manti and very hot, but it was so fun to get out the cowbells and scream for all the kids, like, go Hawks, go Bengals. Like, and they were so cute. They were like shocked I knew all of their mascots, I was like, yeah, Kenyans. Like, it was a lot of fun. We were getting a kick out of it. I loved the SCC PTA lunch and I attended it. I really appreciate these parents who put so much time and effort into investing in their kids' schools. It makes such a profound difference. Which brings me to another point. So there are a number of board members from other districts and I who will be going to speak to the editorial board of the Desert News in KSL on the 9th. And we had a meeting this past Friday and Jeff and Kirsten were really helpful in helping us prep for that and have a discussion about why is public education so important. That it really comprises such a critical piece of the infrastructure of the state, particularly of our economy, and what are the factors that contribute to what's the word I'm looking for, to what disintegrates that important bridge that we have built over the years. And one of the pillars that we've discussed that is so critical in keeping that bridge up and strong and steady is parental involvement. And so it was wonderful for me to meet with the SCC and PTA parents and to say, we need parents like you and we need more of you. The others are teachers and administrators and some of the other supports that we provide our students. It makes a huge difference. It makes a huge difference in what our state looks like now and in the future. And I'm grateful for every person in this district that makes such an effort to ensure that the students at this district are being supported and that they're trying to keep that bridge strong and thriving. My hope is that in speaking with them that we can really get their ear and helping them understand how the classroom is changing significantly, particularly since COVID, but especially so over the last 5 to 10 years, and to help them understand, especially with the influx of immigrants and some other needs and shifts and changes in student behavior and other factors, that some of what we're hearing from the legislature is the reality is not a true reflection of what's going on. And we really hope that they'll listen to those of us who represent the schools on the ground level. To Chris's point, I appreciate what you had to say with regard to this latest decision by the legislature. As an attorney, I have to say one of my biggest concerns that has come out of that whole thing is a disregard of the courts. And increasingly in our nation, we are seeing more and more denigration of the checks and balances in our government. And that has me deeply concerned. The courts have always kind of been upheld as like a third party, like more objective voice that could keep things in check and interpret the law. And to see how they have been attacked in this situation, we should all be very concerned. I've seen this kind of happen at the national level for a while, and it hasn't made me happy, certainly, especially when we consider the importance of the Constitution, which we are celebrating this month. But I think when it shows up at our doorstep as a state, we should all be paying attention. So thank you for what you had to say, and I appreciate all of the work of my fellow board members, and that's all I have to share.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Edel.
So I'll start with, I finally get to be a beet digger. So I got to participate in their topping the beet ceremony, and take a bite out of the beet. And so that was a good time. And so I'm thankful that, they invited me, to come over for that. I also applaud everyone who stayed awake during the motions for the LBA. It was rough for me. Bueller kept coming to my mind. But good job on that. And then I want to say thank you to Chris for the statement you just made, regarding the recent actions of the state legislature. Really, really, really well said. I really appreciate it. So I've sworn to support and defend the constitutions of the United States and the state of Utah, against all enemies, foreign or domestic. And the great thing about our different constitutions is that they can't just be overturned on a whim. The constitutions aren't fixed. They're designed to be changed over time, but they're also designed to make sure that some basic principles are upheld. And in the Utah Constitution, that's why the state legislature has to propose their constitutional amendment to take the power from the people, because no matter how much they want to, the Utah Constitution first gives the power to the people. And it is up to each and every one of us to ensure that the people form the voice of our government and of our society. And so it'll be an interesting election season, right? We've got multiple constitutional amendments on the ballot. But the Constitution is there to protect us. But ultimately, it's up to us to make sure that it's not changed in ways that strip our ability to govern ourselves and to maintain a free society. That's kind of what this step is all about, is maintaining a free society within the state of Utah, by ensuring that the power is distributed among all of the residents, as opposed to a few selected by, I believe it was somewhere around 0.2% of the population. So to end on a happier note, my kids have been loving school. I've got kids in middle school and elementary school this year. And so I want to say thank you so much to the teachers, staff, and administrators at all of our schools, because that my kids are excited to go to school every day is a direct testament to them. Because, well, I mean, they have to get up early, they have to be at school all day, but yet there's no place that they'd rather be. So thank you so much to our amazing schools, because it's not by chance that my kids love school so much.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Teeny.
Thank you. I too appreciate the comments that have been made about our Constitution, as this is Constitution Month. It is very important that we not take it for granted and just trust our role as the people's voice to other entities, and that we study things out and that we recognize the solemn nature of the Constitution. I know off and on over the years, people, as I've had discussions with various legislators, and there's kind of this phrase about, well, we have to be careful to not tie the hands of future legislatures. And I feel like that is the role of the Constitution. And as has been mentioned, it represents the voice of the people. And so I too urge everyone to take very seriously the questions that are being asked of us. And then also Pure Court swearing in. What a fabulous event that was, and so a room full of hope. Those students that are participating on Pure Court and that will participate throughout the process of the year. It's about hope. It's about making things better and bringing restoration to situations that maybe have gone a little sideways for a minute or two. But it also will bring experiences of participating in a public process. And I think that's really great. Well, a somewhat public process, but a coordinated process. I was able to attend a couple of the SEC and PTA lunches, which was fabulous. I love associating with those fine people that are committed to our schools. And I just want to recognize that while the PTAs kind of got organized in the spring and over the summer, SECs, many of the schools now are right in the process of conducting their elections to get organized in the next week or two. So appreciate all the work that they do. And I was able to attend a back to school activity. And then as we talked about earlier, several of the committees that I serve on have met in the last couple of weeks. And it's good to be back in the routine after the summer break. And I just really appreciate the work of the committees. I feel like it is helping, not only as mentioned earlier, that to create some synergy, but also to move things forward. So I look forward to the work that will happen this fall.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Nybar.
Thank you for all of those comments. I'm really grateful for public engagement and parent engagement, and for, I think for us as a district, as school board members, really the easiest way for there to be checks and balances, because we can't be in every classroom and we can't know everything that's going on, is for parents to be engaged and to communicate with us. And I was reminded of that just in the last few weeks as school started, and how important that piece of it is. And I think it takes patience and it takes persistence, but if we can couple those two things, and that goes hand in hand with the legislators. We were discussing a matter earlier this evening, and if more citizens and parents were involved in writing to legislators and taking that one small step forward, it really can make a difference. It starts with one, and I'm a believer in that. And so I'm grateful for the parents of our community and for their for being bold and communicating to us when we hear some things that maybe need some improvement or change. I'm super grateful for our teachers and our administrators, and for the direction that we're headed, and for the district. And that's all I have for tonight. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I just want to add that I really enjoyed the SEC and PTA luncheons, and the parents had just really good questions. And one question that one of them asked, which I thought the board should kind of think about, and the administration as well, was, and I did appreciate the superintendent going over our strategic plan with them, but one parent asked, what can we do to support the strategic plan? And I just really thought we need to have a good answer for that. We kind of talked about maybe an SEC training, talking about that some more. But I love that question. And if we are going to get this down to the end of the road, we have to get parents to know what it is and to be working on something. So I want to challenge us all to to think about that, remember that, and let's work toward that. Then I attended a lot of the events everyone else did. I won't repeat those, but I wanted to give you guys, we had our first Utah High School Activities Association meeting of the year. And I just wanted to give you guys an update on that. First of all, I just want to share some statistics. So UHSAA has 159 member schools and 111,000 students participate in sports, activities, and music. So that means that 66% of high school students that attend those schools participate. And I think that's amazing. That means 2 out of 3 kids are doing something at our schools. And I do think that really helps the kids to come to school. They want to come to school to participate. So I thought that was great. I want to let you guys know this is a realignment year. So we will start meetings in December. And that means we realign all the regions. The board did vote for the first time ever that we still consider enrollment, we still consider free and reduced lunch numbers, but we're adding the success factor. So it's all statistically figured out, but so each classification we will look at those, and maybe if there's 1 or 2 outliers at the top or bottom, we will consider moving them up or down based on that. So that's a really big thing. Our state has not done that before, but I think that is needed. So also, let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, and how they determine that, the success factor, it's only on the sports that have an RPI. So it's not every sport. And they do a 3-year average of how they do in those sports. So and that is my update. I just wanted to let you guys know about that. We also changed the transfer rule, which I already told you guys about. So I think that is all, and I appreciate all of you guys and all of our great conversations and decisions we made tonight. So thank you, and I'll adjourn this meeting. I got a question.